Good morning, all. This is a little bit different to my norm. This is actually now going to go and look at a smaller time frame, a much smaller time frame, and we're actually going to do this using Bitcoin. So, if you know anything about us, you've been following us, or you're already a subscriber, then we're actually going to be adding another channel kind of within our Discord channel, specifically based around this smaller time frame Bitcoin type trades. We probably add a few other pairs, but I guess to start with, it's going to be focused on Bitcoin. So Paul currently is cleaning up an indicator, which you'll see kind of in the background here, the consolidation indicator. Now, this is based on a method called the master pattern. It's not actually ours. There's other people that teach this pattern as well. But what I've personally done over the years is use this, I guess, as a dumbed down Wyckoff schematic. And the way I like to describe this to students is it's a schematic that you probably see on a much smaller time frame, and then zoomed out, you're actually going to see it as a simplified format on the bigger time frame that you're actually operating. Now, bear in mind, we're going to be using this on a 15-minute time frame, so probably a 1 to 3 minute schematic would be the equivalent of the consolidation range that you see in terms of the background of the indicator. So if you don't actually follow Paul, or you're not actually following Paul's daily streams, it's probably worth you checking his profile out on TradingView. And Paul actually covers this because this is a technique that he uses smaller time frame on his own personal account. So his profile there is Paul underscore Varco, and Paul goes into a bit more detail in this, as well as within the channel, we'll be adding some of the educational content around it, as well as use to the actual indicator once obviously it's all cleaned up. So this is something that's kind of coming. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show, I guess, the core concept of this. And for me, I think it's more, I suppose it's much more important to actually show this in real time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show it without any kind of bar replay or anything else. And then I'll draw up some levels and some lines. I'll pause the video, and then ultimately, in a couple of hours time, maybe even tomorrow, I'll record then the second half of this video, and then come back and kind of, join the two things together. So we're at 8:45. I think say UTC is actually French time, so we're 8:45 now in France. It's the 15th of December, and yeah. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to start off with, again, just reiterating. For me personally, this is something that is only one piece of a much bigger puzzle in terms of the larger time frame stuff that I do. So we're going to be adding, like I said, a second channel purely based on smaller time frame stuff. This is going to be a new subscription kind of package. If you're already a subscriber, you'll get access to this anyway. But ultimately, this is going to be without the kind of the building blocks into the main kind of professional type strategy. So if you're interested in kind of gaming Bitcoin rather than using it in terms of a money making machine, as the bigger strategies would actually help you with, this is something that's probably likely to help you on that smaller time frame. So to start off with, what I'll do is I'll hide the price. Okay, so what I'm looking for when I hide the price, I'm looking for these larger consolidations, right? So I've actually got this highlighted there, so I'm just going to take that out and put this in, right? Now, first things first, I'm going to put the 50% marker there, and this one's going to be in orange because this is the big one, okay? So in essence, what you'd be looking for now is you're looking for the price to leave the range, come back to the range, and then go. So the 50% marker is ultimately the value range, value area, and you'll be looking to take then along from this position. So there's a couple of moving averages behind this as well. You can say, look, on the crossover, for example, you can take that with confirmation from the value area. It's going to increase the likelihood of a trade. Now, again, I'm not trying to hide anything here. There's nothing that, I want to say that I'm not doing or I am doing. I'm not trading this right now. And that's just being blunt. I guess in the grand scheme of things, this is just to help you guys if you are looking for that shorter time frame type thing. So the way I would actually set this particular trade up is something along these lines there. I'd be looking for a couple of pips. You could even go to the 25% marker, for example, stop loss up there. And then in essence, you'd be looking for the first TP above these levels there. And you can obviously run that depending on the cross of the moving average, for example. So that could be the type of trade you'd be looking for. I didn't take this trade, obviously it's already in the past. So this was just an example of showing, why, how, and how you could actually utilize this tool. So again, similarly, you have then another cluster form. We've come back down, we've retested again. Once you see the cross, I mean, you could argue this one taken along, which would have given you a nice little entry there. If you wanted to take this on a 15-minute kind of view with a 5-minute entry, again, nothing stopping you doing this. So the kind of trade you're looking for is now, in essence, all we're doing is using this as ultimately resistance until it breaks through. Now, we could argue on this one, we want to take a trade once we get the crossover. We had a crossover there. This one would have been probably stopped out on the trade if we were to take that one there for short. But what we're actually looking for now is to zoom in to the smaller pieces and actually get better entries, more refined entries on the same process, but using the little consolidations, right? So we've got the orange level there. I'm going to leave that one kind of marked up, but I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. So the general idea is very similar to the first stage. We're actually now looking for the larger consolidation. So I'm going to take consolidation there and there. I'm going to put the 50% marker in around there. I'm going to change this one to white. And therefore, you're going to have similar type of moves that you'll see. Consolidation on the bigger time frame, coming down, coming back to retest it, and then ultimately taking the short. Now, you've obviously got a short target, and the same thing from the long, you've got a long target, and you can refine these then as they come through. So we could say, well, this one now has come in, we've taken this one, which means we've got a cluster sitting around there. That will become the next target rather than the higher one there, and we can then step into the one right. So as then the price narrows, what you're actually doing is, like I said earlier about the 15-minute being the 1 or the 3-minute consolidation pattern, the 15-minute is acting as the consolidation pattern for a 1 hour, a 4 hour, and so on, so on. So you'll actually, in essence, be seeing something that looks like this on a bigger time frame. Okay, so that's what you're actually looking at when you zoomed into this kind of level. Now, if we start looking at the consolidation phases and ranges, we'll now be looking at the next one. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to look at the average. Now, you've got a big one around there, and you've got the drop all the way around here, right? So we could refine this and refine it again, but I'm going to say we've got a 50% marker sitting there. So therefore, we're looking at now potential moves that would look something like this, right? Now, I'd be expecting potentially a drop on down into the zone. I'd be looking for a buy position there, and I'd be looking to take this long up to this position, unless there's anything in there that gives me another form of cluster, which we could argue this sitting in there. There's a couple of clusters in there. So I'll make this kind of smaller time frame. I'll make this there. I'll put that into blue. And what I'll do then is I will say TP1, my trade should look something like this, right? I'd be looking for a buy entry in there. I'd be looking for a stop loss, probably 25% into this box. And I'd be looking for a take profit in and around that. That's giving me just over a 2-to-1 type of trade. So what I'll do is I'll walk away from this now, right? This is all I'm going to show at this particular point. Like I said, we are now currently in the live time. It is 8:51, 15th of December, French time. And therefore I'll pause the video on the actual chart. I'm not trading this as a live account. This is just something to show the concept of what we'll be showing shorter time frame. And I'll take a couple of seconds to cover what we've then been looking at in terms of the longer time frame stuff. So a couple of days back, I put together a sub stream for the subscribers. I've then covered back around the 8th some of the positions as to why we're doing what we're doing with the larger time frame on Bitcoin. There's some GAN angles and some bits and pieces in there. There's actually some logic for the much bigger time frame, which I'll probably release in the next couple of days, for the visitor section, and again possibly onto YouTube. But this is obviously what we've been, I guess, hiding in terms of behind the wall with the subscribers. So yeah, so there's some longer term stuff there. This goes back to the September kind of key levels that I was highlighting. You know, we've actually played this range kind of perfectly right now. We kind of sit in within these clusters. We sat within two larger clusters, and you know, I think right now it's kind of boring, but it's boring for a very good reason. So again, I've covered a couple of these things in my post. So again, into TradingView, I've written a couple of, I guess, funny posts recently. I've actually covered this one. If you haven't read this one, it's probably worth a read. This goes back throughout the full year of Bitcoin, going back to last December, as to why this is connected ultimately to DXY and beyond, why we were in reaccumulation in January, where the levels were going to be, how this was actually regarded as a value area. So this one's quite actually interesting. So looking at the institutional level there, we saw that we had a 36,000, and this is going back to February this year. So for me, this is where the accumulation would start to play itself out. And as you can see, we've come back exactly using that level as a 50% marker. And again, it's just kind of collecting before we actually start to make that move away from that level. So you can see that, from where we've been to where we are going, this is definitely becoming institutionalized. This is part of the reason that I'm not very keen on the shorter term stuff, but I'm kind of concerned for people that are trading shorter term stuff because it's what they want rather than what they, I suppose, need in the grand scheme of things. We wanted to put together this new channel based on the shorter term stuff. So as you can see, through March on the larger time frame, it's done exactly what we were planning. Down to 4, up to 5. We had a very weak 5. So we've covered all of this. This is all in the TradingView post. Obviously, there's a bit more detail and some of the education on how you'd actually do this yourself, in terms of what we teach within Discord. So again, those value areas, the clusters that I was just talking about, if you can see in there, we've got September the 30th. We actually had this level here as the potential ceiling for the move. We actually highlighted this obviously behind the firewall within Discord, and then ultimately, a month later, so nearly a month later, October the 27th, we come up and practically to the pip, tag the ceiling. We've now moved back down. We've come back up. We actually had a fake out through the ceiling. It actually come back down and used the ceiling again to retest that level before dropping on down exactly to the main point of the cluster. So again, if it's something that you're interested in terms of understanding how to pick these levels yourself, then this is what we teach in the bigger package in terms of Mayfair. But obviously for this particular video, it was just highlighting what we're actually using and how we're using this, that we could help on the shorter time frame moves based on the bigger term logic. So like I said, I'll pause this video, come back, and hopefully we'll have a position on the long in a couple of hours. Okay guys, I've just skipped forward. This is now live again. Still the 15th of December. We're actually my time in France. We're only 7 minutes past 3 in the afternoon. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pick up where I just left off. So I've obviously connected the two videos together for this example, and this was just to keep it kind of live, keep it current. So as you can see from where I just finished off the previous video, the orange level, which was ultimately the bigger one that I'd mentioned there, the bigger consolidation, you can actually see that we've come on down. We've tagged it practically to the pip. Right, it's probably to the penny if we zoomed right in. So the idea there, look, is if we were to take that trade on, we could take it at that orange level. We could take it, down further if we're going to get the next move on down. And then in essence, we are kind of in that trade. Okay, so it's not a question of would I take it or, it was more of just showing the example of this coming on up, coming from where we were earlier, dropping down to where I see this moving, and then ultimately moving away from there. So I think you've got a couple of options. You've got the local being this white level. You've got the bigger consolidation being the orange. and I think right now we've got, you know, a nice little bit of a rejection off the orange. So I'd be looking for the character traits around this. I'm just going to put now what Paul has been working on. So as I mentioned, we've got this being technically cleaned up. So we've got the first one, which was this one. Paul's been working on this, which is kind of now more, I guess, the advanced version. And the general idea is that there's actually a sequence of colors. I'm not quite sure what he's done in this or whether or not he's finished it. Um, so ultimately, you've got, okay, so these are the different periods. High volume. Okay, so the color coding is what he's actually got in there. So as you'll see inside, high volume red, we've got a yellow as above average volume, we've got green as below average volume, and then blue as terrible volume in essence. So right now you'll start to see these clusters. This is where the consolidation patterns will come in, and obviously the bigger the consolidation, the bigger the cluster, and obviously then the bigger the moves we'd like to see in alignment with those colors. So I obviously haven't used this particular one yet. This is one that Paul's only just sent me. So the general idea again is you'll start to see kind of target regions, if you will. You'll have entry on larger volume plays. You'll have target regions, things like this. When you've got a heavy cluster, you'll actually see that there's not much there, as all of these colors are all blue. So you've got a little bit of green in there, blue, blue, blue. And therefore, if you break through this level, you're probably expected to go through to the next heavy zone, which is probably further over here somewhere. I don't even know where these are. I've only just turned this on myself. Yeah, so for me, you know, if we were to break through this one, given that this is technically low volume and below decent volume, then I think I'd probably take that up, you know, even higher again. But this is only for the example, and therefore I'm going to keep it down where we are. We've got a red volume there just below the orange. So, you know, personally, I'd probably take an entry if we were to come back down and create a double bottom. I'd still keep my stop loss just below this level here. Obviously, low volume. It's probably a good area for that stop loss. And then, like I said, if I was in this trade and trading this up all the way, I'd probably run it up there if I could. At least use a trailing stop. But first target is probably just below this one, and therefore, you know, the indicators are coming. We've obviously got the first part of the consolidation there. So what we'll be doing now is launching kind of a new subscriber section within the Discord server. And therefore, if you're already a subscriber, you're already paying the monthly fee or 3 months, 6 months, or annual fees, then you'll be getting this as part of what we're doing anyway. If you haven't, then you're looking to do shorter term trading, then this is going to be without any of the education or anything else, a slightly reduced package. And ultimately, this is just going to be for shorter time frame. We probably keep it to Bitcoin at the moment, although the indicator will work on other instruments. I think we'll be using the channel almost exclusively to Bitcoin in the first month or so. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm gonna cut it as it is, and hopefully I'll do an update to this video as we get potentially filled into this trade and then move her on up, and fingers crossed it'll go where I think we're going to get to next. So yeah, enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you soon.